And as your Good Morning Uganda, we are always grateful to be able to wake up with you every single morning from Monday to Friday. My name is Philomena Mastiko. Happy new month. And yes, a lot is yet to be happening in this month of March. And of course, being the highlight of the month is going to be the Women's Day, a month that we get to celebrate all the women in the world, phenomenal women, women who are doing it all. I think this is the month that we deserve to give them, to make it an exception. We will be giving you all these between now and the end of the month, and a lot of other things are going to be happening. I am with Mollen, Kenyena and Robert Kirabo as always, and we're going to be delivering. We'll be giving you everything and anything that you need to know. But before I get to talk to them, it's also actually World Civil Defense Day, a day that the world gets to give attention to civil preparedness and protection. How ready are you when it comes to emergencies? How prepared are you? What do you know about all these contingency plans? All that you need to be educating yourself today, because a lot has been happening for us as a country, but also for the globe. Very many emergency things have happened, but we never know how to treat them. We never know how to act when such scenarios or unpredictable occurrences come to us. Well, today we are also recognizing the people in the civil sector, the people who come through for us when there are fire outbreaks, when we have all these, man-made disasters, natural disasters. Well, bravo to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's about that time I get to know how Mollen and Robert actually are prepared for this month of March. I will start off with you, Robert. Good morning.
Lovely morning to you, Philomena.
Good morning.
How have you been?
I'm great. I'm very excited. I'm very happy that March is officially here. I feel like it's an extension of February, only that in a different light.
Well, also, when you look at in terms of money circulation, March is a month where people are believed now to have fully recovered. That is from school fees, from what we had when we opened the opening of the economy. So now many people are very optimistic that March is going to treat them better than January was, better than February was, because now we've had a bit of recoveries. So to me, that is where I want to really look at that critically. Will we see that, or will we still have the issues coming up now that we know actually commodity prices are shooting up?
Yes.
Fuel prices remain high. Globally, when you look at what is happening between Russia and Ukraine, knowing that Russia is the second largest producer, that is of oil and gas. We also know these sanctions, Russia may hold a bit of her reserves that may shoot global prices of oil. So there is so much that I'm looking through the lenses and saying, well, is this much going to be recovery? But for the farmers, the good news is that we always have our biggest rain season in the country, because we have two rain seasons, the March to May, and of course then there August to September. So now we expect ask the farmers that we are going to have the rains, we are going to plant, we are going to have food with value addition, the parish development model. So that line, we are so optimistic that we are going to get more money. But you people who work in offices, we don't know.
But from the way I look at it, I feel like we have actually very many more positives that are outweighing the negatives. I mean, we can only be optimistic at this point. And maybe Mollen will tell us more about this weather that we are expecting in March, whether we'll like it or it's something that we probably need to be a little bit skeptical about. Good morning, Mollen.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Philo and Robert, and of course our viewers out there. But I can tell you, it's not being skeptical if you see the scientists come up to say, this is the month that you're supposed to go planting. Because guess what? With this highly anticipated rainy season, because what we saw in the past is that our seasons have not been performing. But with this season, our predictions were showing clearly that we're going to have even to some areas above normal rainfall. And Philo, you've also seen that some schools actually, we had lightning strikes across different areas. So these rains that are coming in right now are associated with stormy weather, windy weather, and even with thunder and lightning. That's just, a sandwich of what is to come. So we do expect these rains to come through, and this is not the time to be skeptic. Once the rains are there, once you see that, there is that consistency in your area, start planting. You can't wait, and especially with the long-term, growing crops, this is the time to actually start up, because you don't know when the rains will be fluctuating. But also, I want to use this month to also, hail on the women. If we're
Yes.
talking about March, there are women who have actually taken on what seemed to be like men's jobs. Just recently, as we watching an interview from a woman who works with Safe Border,
Yes.
and she was talking about her job as a Safe Border rider with that much courage and be like, she's okay being in this men world. And borders, they're usually guys. She can actually be there on stage and she's having this conversation. I'm like, wow, that's my kind of woman. There are women in firefighters.
Oh, yes.
Imagine a woman on a fire truck. This is some kind of job that involves you being hands-on and being quick enough. I'm like, yeah,
a job that we have actually left for the gentlemen in most cases.
exactly. And then you also look at women in construction.
Yes.
And for me, that's really a highlight. This is a kind of job that requires you to have enough energy, and society has not looked at women that being able to take on that hard jobs, but women are going for it. So I say in this month of March, let's celebrate these women, not just on Women's Day, but let's recognize that there are women who have taken in an extra effort to even take on some of the jobs that seem to be, quoted the men's jobs. And I say kudos.
I will tell you one thing. I feel like right now where we are at, women have decided to really step out of their comfort zones, that they have decided to be very daring. And I think we cannot fail to acknowledge that they have done things that society really doesn't expect them to do. They have become very brave. Speaking of brave women, there is a story I did find about this 65-year-old woman who actually had to fight off robbers that were trying to get into her medical facility right there in Kasoko. So I don't know whether you know where Kasoko is. Right there in Chireka. So 65-year-old woman, she did it. She defended herself. She didn't have anybody to come through for her. And I was thinking, I don't know, if I was in this place, where would I really be this brave, to make sure that I ward off these robbers? But I mean, we continue to appreciate all these women who are doing amazing and wonderful things. Things that we know, things that we don't know, things that are being recognized, things that are not being recognized. You're amazing. You're doing so great. And we absolutely appreciate you, Robert. Do you not agree with that?
Well, there is one time I experienced that. Actually, 2 times.
Yes.
First is when I had challenges with electricity.
Okay.
So I call this guy and tells me, well, Umeme may take some time, but I think there's someone who can sort you. She works with Umeme.
Yes.
I'm like, okay. Did you say she? Say, don't mind.
The
You just
proposition
give
already
the money.
brought very many questions.
People was home. This lady comes. She was putting on an overall. So first I'm like, my better half told me, oh, you're Simukazi. She's a woman. So
Yes.
you're Simukazi. I'm like, so cool. Let me look at it critically. This lady came, put on those climbing boots.
Yes.
And she went to the top. I have a phobia for heights, but she went to the top, did everything very well, came down. And I asked her how much, and very confident.
Oh, yes.
I cheated a day. I'm like, wow. Then second, a friend of mine tells me, I'm in a garage. There's this mechanic, very excellent. I'm like, did you say a lady? She said, yes. People, I went, she was under the car, and I've recommended her several times. First, I've learned, a male flock, please don't feel offended. When it comes to issues of trust, where a man will tell you that this spare part is 400,000, yet actually it is 200. A woman will tell you 200,000.
They're actually very honest.
Very honest compared to the men. Maybe because a man has so much to fend for and sometimes we lose that. Then even come in politics, we've had women take on seats. We have, for example, members of parliament.
Yes.
There's that ring-fenced seat for women, female representative of every district.
Yes.
But then that is what some call direct ticket. But then they have also gone to other areas where people thought that is only for the women. Now these other seats. Look at what happened in Zimbabwe, where we saw shirts come up and really take up. They have gone those tough, hot races where you would feel, for sure, this woman should leave this seat for the man. The guy is so aggressive. He has a lot of money. He's been in politics. He's done both clean and dirty games in politics. But guess what? This woman comes, contests, and people give them the vote, goes through, and you're like, yes.
Interesting that you talk about trust, because I feel like this is the one thing that women have been well known for over the years. Like, at least there is that kind of trust. And also when you talk about politics, look at our Prime Minister. She has been, you know, on the roll. She's taking on
no one
taken
can
on a
fail
lot
to
of
notice
ministry.
her.
She calls people on. If you're a certain minister for some ministry and you're not doing well, she will call you on and she will assert her position there. The vice president. I mean, women in this country, well, we are doing well.
Doing wonderful things.
I'm
Women in
including me and Philo
business.
here. We are doing
And you know what is
Women in
interesting?
journalism, women
Philo,
in politics,
for
women in
us,
leadership, everywhere.
The men we are a bit scared to one.
Why?
I want to
Why?
give
Why?
you.
Why?
You know where all this emancipation came from is Uganda. Women were a bit. I was looking at the recent statistics in university admissions.
Yes.
And you see that now girls, the boys were at 50%, the girls were at 51% in terms of enrollment up to university. So much as we are giving so much attention to the girl child, I think to some extent we need to think about the boy child as well.
Well, that we are also yet to look into. Well, right about now, we're going to be taking a peek at some of the stories that made it to the news desk on the local scene and also in the international scene with Robert, myself, and Mollen.
And we kick it off with what transpired yesterday in Parliament as Kenyena Municipality Member of Parliament was in the Committee of Privilege, where Kenyena Municipality legislator Francis Zake challenged the jurisdiction of the Parliamentary Disciplinary Committee to investigate allegations of his misconduct against him to the person of the Deputy Speaker. While appearing before the committee, Zake said that the allegations against him are malicious and are in bad faith. Kenyena Municipality legislator, together with his two lawyers, Aaron Chiza and Benjamin Katana, while appearing before the Parliamentary Committee of Rules Privileges, said that the misconduct allegations levied against him happened outside the premises of Parliament and therefore putting in question the jurisdiction of the committee to investigate matters that happen outside Parliament. Zake told the committee, chaired by Bugweri County Member of Parliament Abdu Katuntu, that the allegations against him are malicious, describing the proceedings of the committee as being engulfed with different conflicts of interest. The committee agreed to give Zake and his lawyers one more day to put their reasons as to why they think the committee has no jurisdiction to investigate the matter in writing. At the beginning of this month, MP Martin Mapenduzi raised the matter on the floor of Parliament, saying he intends to move a motion to have Zake relieved of his duties as a commissioner for degrading the integrity of Parliament and office of the Deputy Speaker, in breach of Rule 84 and 85 of the Rules of Procedures and Paragraph 5 of the Code of Conduct of Members of Parliament.
Away from that, we look at police briefing, where police has directed Kampala Division commanders to intensify operations against urban robbery, which is escalating with car break-ins and bag grabbing. The police spokesperson, Fred Enanga, has displayed some CCTV footage exposing techniques being used by Kampala robberies. Now, this was at a weekly media brief where more security highlights were delivered. On Kampala streets, pedestrians are not safe and are exposed to urban robbers who grab their belongings. Police has unearthed new techniques these thieves use to break into people's vehicles. And Kampala Police Division commanders are directed to reinforce operations during rush hours in Kampala. The police has rescued 6 juveniles who were being trafficked by the preferred recruitment agency to Arab countries. Now, the aviation police intercepted the movement at Entebbe International Airport, and police are hunting managers of the company whose license expired. In another development, Uganda prisons has closed 50 COVID-19 isolation centers as a response to the country's status and or relaxing on strict anti-corona measures. Visitation to inmates is now okayed and other measures have been relaxed. Police has expressed the consistent growing curve with child stealing across the country.
Relatedly, on issues of fighting crime, City lawyer Isaac Semakade faces charges of offensive communication and cyber stalking after being interrogated at Kibuli CID. Police CID spokesperson Charles Twine confirmed that the lawyer Isaac Semakade appeared at CID headquarters following the summons. Although Semakade was arrested immediately after interrogation, he was later released on police bond. City lawyer Isaac Semakade was summoned last week by CID and has appeared at CID head offices Chibuli. Isaac Semakade, who was escorted by lawyer Gawaya Tegule, said he will challenge this. The media was denied access to the interrogation room, but Isaac Semakade was charged with 2 offenses of offensive communication and cyber stalking. It is alleged that lawyer Semakade, using his social media platform, offended the person of the head of the High Court Civil Division, Judge Musa Sekana. After being interrogated, lawyer Semakade addressed the media. Gawaya Tegule, Semakade's lawyer, expressed the zeal of defending his client in court over the alleged offenses. Isaac Semakade will again appear at CID headquarters on the 21st of March this year.
In another story, we look at digital learning. Now, the digital revolution has changed education with the rise of e-learning and teaching undertaken on digital platforms. But with it, the e-learning imbalances have been birthed and felt. The spokesperson, Ministry of Education and Sports, Dr. Dennis Mujimba, told UBC that e-learning in tertiary and higher learning institutions will pave for primary and secondary level. Now, since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, e-learning has been a form of learning outside the normal class instructions or lectures. Computers and smartphones are what learners use to access information. The Ministry of Education and Sports has approved e-learning in tertiary and higher learning institutions to pave the ministry's plan for adaptation of e-learning in primary and secondary education. However, the high cost of internet connectivity has created learning imbalances across the country, and it leaves the poor and less privileged learners behind. With the rising learning inequality triggered by digital learning, government will set policies to solve the issue. We look at international stories.
And starting off this morning, we are taking a look at what is happening, some of the updates and highlights in the Ukraine-Russia war. Now, the Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky calls for no-fly zone to stop Russian bombardment, but White House says U.S. is not considering such a move. And a huge convoy of Russian armor, about 40 miles long, is advancing on Ukraine's capital Kyiv, satellite images show. And the International Criminal Court's prosecutor says he wants to investigate Russia for possible war crimes. And air raid sirens are once again heard in Kyiv, with reports of a Russian strike on the outskirts of the city. And dozens of civilians were killed early on Monday in Russian missile strikes on Ukraine's second city, Kharkiv, the Interior Ministry says. And negotiators for Kyiv and Moscow have held talks in Belarus in a bid to end the conflict. And also, Russia says both sides have agreed to continue talking and will meet again in the next few days. Now, before the meeting, Ukraine's President Zelensky urged Russian troops to lay down their weapons and called for immediate EU membership. And FIFA and UEFA have suspended Russian football clubs and national teams from all competitions. And also, the United Nations says more than 500,000 refugees have now fled Ukraine for neighboring countries. And civilian death toll now stands at 352 people, including 14 children, Ukraine's health ministry. And as according to the UN, more than 520,000 people have fled Ukraine since Russian invasion began. And finally, US, the UK and EU, Canada impose sanctions on Russia's central bank. And still on the Ukraine-Russia war, Russia has been expelled from the 2022 World Cup and its team suspended from all international football competitions, and that is until further notice after President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. FIFA announced in a joint statement with UEFA on Monday. And also, the men's team had been due to play in qualifying playoffs in March for the World Cup in Qatar later this year, while its women's side had qualified for the European Championship in England that is to be held in July. The announcement also affects Russian clubs involved in European competitions. FIFA and UEFA have today decided together that all Russian teams, whether national representative teams or club teams, shall be suspended from participation in both FIFA and UEFA competitions until further notice. Football's global and European governing bodies said in their statement. Russia were due to play Poland in a World Cup qualifying playoff semi-final on March 24th and could have gone on to face Sweden or the Czech Republic on March 29th for a place at the finals. But their three potential opponents insisted they would boycott the matches. And getting back home here in Africa, Nigeria has urged respect towards Africans at the Ukrainian border. Now, as the stream of people fleeing Ukraine from the Russian invasion shows no sign of abating, the Nigerian government has expressed concern over reports of discriminatory behavior by Ukrainian and Polish border guards against Africans. There have been unfortunate reports of Ukrainian police and security personnel refusing to allow Nigerians to board buses and trains heading towards the Ukraine-Poland border, read a statement that was published on Thursday by Nigeria's presidency. The presidency also cited a video that had been widely shared on social media showing a Nigerian woman with her young baby being forcibly made to give up her seat to another person. Now, one group of Nigerian students, having been repeatedly refused entry into Poland, have concluded they have no choice but to travel again across Ukraine and attempt to exit the country via the border with Hungary. While efforts to begin talks between Russia and Ukraine are underway, paramount in our minds is the safety and human rights of some 4,000 Nigerian citizens and many others from friendly African nations today stranded in Ukraine, it added.
We look at the IPCC report, which highlights the need for climate action and adaptation. Now, a new report from the Inter-Governmental Panel on Climate Change highlights the need to stop carbon emissions and adapt to the unavoidable risks, according to one of its lead authors. Now, Professor Richard Betts, MBE of Met Office UK and University of Exeter, says that the working group to report demonstrates the vast body of evidence that humans are causing climate change with damaging impacts worldwide. Approved by 195 IPCC member governments, the report calls climate change a threat to human well-being and the health of the planet, and says that taking action now can secure our future. It also says that people and ecosystems least able to cope are being the hardest hit. Professor Betts, part of Exeter's Global Systems Institute, says that the report shows that climate change is already having widespread impacts, and further impacts are in the pipeline, even if emissions are cut rapidly, as the most ambitious scenario suggests. We also conclude that many future climate-related risks are more severe than the previous IPCC assessments. Now, there is urgency for the need to adapt to these changes to manage those unavoidable risks, as well as urgently stopping carbon emissions from burning of fossil fuels and deforestation in order to stop these risks from increasing further.
Well, we have a lot to do as a planet. We also have comes to climate and making sure that we bring everything back to stability. Speaking of stability, well, it's that time that the gentleman himself, Robert Kirabo, gets to show off some stability. Well, I don't know what he has to say this time.
Oh, talk about stability, this is what we mean. And of course, you can only get as perfect as I am when it comes to this when you take Hallelujah Tamarind and Hallelujah Jinga Tea. Hallelujah, these products, one thing they do is they boost your immune system, and of course it's only a healthy body that can have the stamina that my sister talked about. And with Mollen's climate change, many of these things are day by day becoming scarce. So what Hallelujah Reflexology has done, that what is hard for you to come by at the same time and then mix them, make that concoction, you may not have that time, or they may not be readily available, but they have been all condensed in this bottle, this darling Hallelujah Jinga Tea. It is here, so please, for those that like sweet things, this is a drink for you. Now this one, Hallelujah Tamarind, is also another precious darling, because for some people that sometimes take a bit and you feel you have hangover, this does magic. But above all, it boosts your immune system. So at the nearest store, just go and get yourself 1,500 each. You're good to go and you'll enjoy the sweetest, the aroma, the flavors, but also your body will benefit because your white blood cells will be empowered to fight off a number of diseases.
Well, a real darling indeed right there. I mean, it has no better sauce than from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, the stability that he exhibits. I feel like every morning Robert is talking about Hallelujah. I'm just, you know, impressed, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should visit the Hallelujah Garden just to see these things.
Maybe you should.
Because it is true, some of these species are actually rare to get these days. But these guys have put them together. So yeah, I mean, that's good work there.
Well, it's about the time when you get to be part of our conversation in this morning's poll question, where we would love to find out from you. You know, we want you to share your 2 cents. Now, the last couple of weeks, we've had quite a number of fires break out in most of these schools, and this has drawn attention to authorities, to the public, and everybody, all the stakeholders that are involved. And we don't know what is causing these fires, but we at least know that at least there is something that can be done. And this morning, that brings us to the poll question. What do you think can be done to make sure we stop the rampant fires, to stop the rampant fire outbreaks in most of these schools in the country? Give us your feedback. Of course, it is the normal drill. The hashtag is UBCGMU. You can also send us quite a WhatsApp message or an SMS text, and we will definitely be sharing that feedback with the rest of the world. The number is 0709-602-592. Well, while you are still pondering about that, also, I think it's very important for us to be able to give you some inspiration, especially now that it is the first day of March 2022. We'll be giving you a song that will lift your spirits up, that, you know, will get you there, at least to give you a good head start of the month. And when we get back, it will be the Good Morning Uganda newsreel, where we'll be talking more in detail concerning these fire outbreaks in the schools. And later on, we'll be taking you to the road and to look at what is happening, the situation, and of course we'll be also having a look at some of the headlines in the print media, not forgetting Mollen, who will also be coming through to give us more about this climate information. The weather forecast. March is definitely here. The heavily anticipated rains are for this month, so she'll be giving us more details on that. Later on, it will be the GMU agenda, and of course Ruben will also be here to give us more concerning the sports arena, and also GMU Extra will be kicking in right after that. But for now, we get into that inspiration. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Sore throat, fever, dry cough or body weakness, immediately seek medical attention from the school nurse and inform your class teacher. Whenever you sneeze or cough, please remember to cover your nose and mouth with a bent elbow, tissue or handkerchief. Let's share knowledge, not COVID-19. This message is supported by the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education and Sports and UNICEF. Stay safe.
You know, you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175*94# to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Dial *175 hash and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
AM, and you're still watching Good Morning Uganda. Welcome to the newsroom with me, Philomena, Mastiko, once again, and I am with Robert Kirabo. Now, like I had told you just a couple minutes ago, we've had quite a rampant outbreak of fires in several of these Ugandan schools. This has really gotten the attention of especially in the schools, primary and secondary schools. Now, this alone has really caused a lot of people to ask and question what is happening, what is causing this, and maybe that we'll be finding out. Me and Robert will be discussing more about this. Maybe just to start off, Robert, how big do you think this is? How big is this problem?
Thank you, Philo, and I love that question because most of the time as media we talk about certain happenings, but we don't bring it to the attention of people to understand that really this is a big problem, and sometimes even to the politicians who blow it out in the direction of their interest. Now, when we talk about schools reopening, that was on the 10th of January.
Yes.
Full reopening of schools. It is now, today we've just finished the month of February.
Yes.
And if you've registered 10 school fires, 10
Actually,
school
at
fires.
least they say at least 10
At least.
fire schools.
And those are those that maybe have destroyed a number of property. But you see, Ugandans, when a fire happens, they first try to fight it.
Yes.
There are those that are not captured in police statistics or records. So, when you look at these 10 fires that have at least been able to be captured by the media, we've lost lives. We've lost lives, and I just want to take some few minutes and maybe refresh the minds of people the fires we've just had since the schools reopened. When the recent away from Birari, because just yesterday but one Birari Muslim school, we saw a fire there that gutted a dormitory.
Yes.
But we had New Crest at Chibedi. Now this fire, that is Kawempe. Actually, when you look at Kawempe division, the Birari fire is the second in Kawempe, and I think third in Kampala.
Yes.
Here we lost 4 children. These suffocated. And when you look at, when you listen to some of the stories, they will tell you that maybe this was an act of arson. This is not conclusive because police has not come up with a report.
Yes.
If you are still waiting for the report of 2008 of the Wudo, where we saw at least 20 lives were lost, perished in that fire. So here we lost 4 people. Go to Good Times Infant School, that is in Kawala. We lost 1. That makes it 5. Now you go to St. John's Primary School, Chotera. We lost 1. So this is about 6 that we are losing or we've lost since school reopened. When you move from there, you go to St. Mary's Junior School. At least no life was lost. St. Cecilia Primary School, this is in Machindye, no life was lost. Nakinziga SDA Primary School, no life was lost. And when we go to Bupa Dengo Primary School, that is Kamuli.
Yes.
So it's not only a Kampala problem. No life was lost. Then Bulamba Primary School, this is Mayuge, no life was lost. So when we look at 10 schools, this really speaks a lot. You've just opened up schools, and then we are seeing these fires. But remember, apart from lives, this has a financial implication. Some schools, when they are gutted by fire, many never reopen. Some never reopen. You know, you have schools that are not insured.
Yes.
Here in Uganda, insurance is something we are just learning.
It's something we're trying to
Yeah, we are
bring
trying to
our
adopt.
system, yes.
So you have many schools that are never going to open. Second, you have property of students that is destroyed, and some, this may be minimal, but some may never return to school. again. So economically it has a problem it faces there. Socially, psychologically, I was speaking to a father, that is Chibuka Edward.
Yes.
Chibuka Edward lost a daughter in the Budo fire. But even when you speak to him as he's recalling those moments, he says, now I even fear to take my child to a boarding school because I wake up and I think maybe a fire would gut that school. So this has an implication. It is a problem that we feel the Ministry of Education and Sports should address together with police.
Yes.
And also, one other issue that I want to point out here, and these people may not seemingly think it is a result of fire, it's a cause of fire. Sometimes the impunity that people are using to acquire land,
Yes.
the dishonesty among school administrators, that when you look at these fires, I was speaking to, that was about 3 months back, no, this very year when he hosted one of the people from the fire directorate.
Yes.
And he said, a number of these, though investigations are not very conclusive yet, but preliminary investigations indicate arson. Arson is when a person deliberately, not accidentally that I forgot a candle,
Or
a matron
a
forgot
lamp
a
or
candle,
something. Yes.
but a person deliberately torches this school. When you look at a fire that happened, that is at Kibedi.
Yes.
No, that is at Birari. The matron would tell you that actually this fire began, there was no socket, there was nothing, but she had kept mattresses there. And with someone,
Yes.
so he said, people open up, purchase land sometimes in a manner where, you know how people use impunity.
Yes.
I know so, now we are going to start a
They don't choose the
school.
right system,
So
they don't.
you're offending people. When we go to administration, you know, in this liberal economy where Minister of Education many times has told headmasters, don't charge extra fee,
Yes.
don't bring this school administration. But they still, you know, there is little it has to bite. So it doesn't go to analyze how these schools are run. There are schools where the headmaster or headmistress will hire you today. You miss 3 months no pay, then fire you. Where do you report?
It's really
Because you're not
sad.
even hired on a contractual basis. So all these poor administration coupled with land wrangles, this is why at the end of the day you're going to have a person touch a school.
Yes.
So apart from looking at infrastructure, looking at licensing a school, administration in schools, if government does not take keen interest to understand Kirabo Senior Secondary School, how many teachers do you have?
Yes.
What are the terms and conditions? If a teacher is to leave this school, how are they leaving? Then the other staff, non-teaching staff, how do you handle these non-teaching staff? Then also, sometimes unhealthy competition.
Oh,
You
yes.
know,
As a way of fighting your competition, you realize you just need to get rid of them. To
The
put them out of the
moment-
system.
I wasn't in Uganda by then in terms of understanding so much what was happening because I was still young. But I spoke to people that passed the education system before you and I entered it. We didn't have this advertisement.
It was very
Schools would not
necessary.
advertise.
Yes.
We not have these best people, best school, best enrollment at university, because all these are creating unhealthy competition. That Philo, I know, I'm going to pin, I'm going to buy space in the newspapers to show that, and someone will even put best school in Wachiso, best school in this municipality, best school. So now people are no longer going into education to teach. It has become business, and day by day is being more commercialized.
Yes.
So this is what happens. If someone has better grades than the other person has, I mean in terms of what they bring out, this person will have that way of thinking, how do I tame
Yes.
this good performer? If we destroy the school today, because some schools have witnessed more than one fire.
Yes.
Go to Wooddo. Since 2008, they've witnessed about 3 fires. You know?
Yes.
So some schools have had a number of these fires. What happens is this unhealthy. Can the ministry reign over and say, like hospitals?
Yes.
How many hospitals have you seen advertising themselves? Because the medical code of conduct is professional. You don't advertise yourself.
Yes.
You've never seen a good gynecologist on TV apart from these funny creatures. You know, the doctor so and so.
Yes.
Yet it's just someone who knows how to treat a snake bites and all that, and he learned from a grandfather. Then he comes and says, I'm a doctor. Actually, that is also something Ministry of Health should watch out. But if schools can have that law, don't advertise. There is no reason why you should bring these best performing, best
you know, school in the district.
School in the district. Those cause unhealth competition. And at the end of the day, that is why we see things that may not obviously be causes becoming causes of some of these fires.
Well, it's really, really sad. And actually, I love the fact that you talk about the economic implication of these schools, because when you look at Bilal, which is like the most recent victim of these fire outbreaks, the students are being sent back home. Now, consider a situation where this parent has, you know, they've really tried so hard to get the money that they have to, because schools have actually been very strict. You bring the money and the child starts school. So you have paid for the child's school fees for the entire term, and now this happens and you have to take back the child. She has lost the time and then the money. That means if you're coming back, I mean, it's on a very, very rare occasion that the school will put it into consideration. But again, still, it goes back to the economic implication. Now, we need to talk about how, or what has the government or ministry done. But before we get into that, do you think that this is a responsibility that we should leave really to the government, or even schools as well should, you know, put an effort? Because we have seen very many efforts be put into place. Back then in 2008, we saw very many standard operating procedures that were put for schools to make sure that you know, they don't become victims. We saw them being asked to put emergency exits, to put all these fire extinguishers and all that. But do you think this is only the government can do, or even the private schools, or the schools on a private basis need to come in and just do something before we have intervention from any stakeholder?
It has two sides of the coin. But one, as government, you know, government is the custodian.
Yes.
Almost of every Ugandan. That is why even if I give birth to my child, I have no right to beat and kill. That is when you'll understand that this child of yours belongs to the government of Uganda. And when you go to courts of law, that is when you'll hear government of Uganda versus Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono. Because it is in the interest of government. And why we have a fully fledged Ministry of Education and Sports, that matters of education in a country, the custodian is that ministry. So I cannot take away government responsibility. And when we go into commercialization, at the back of your mind, if you're regulating any sector, you must know there's what we call maximization of profit. That when you tell me, let me just use a light example of what you've just seen, that every school should have a temperature gun. And if a temperature gun is about maybe 100,000, and the school administration knows that maybe they need 5 of those,
yes,
they can choose not to, because that 500 could be a salary of a teacher. There's maximization of profit. So the regulator must be very, very serious and up to the task. In 2018, when you had these many fires that you've talked about, that were 32 in 29 schools.
Yes.
By then, the Inspector General of Police, General Kale Kaihura, and the Ministry of Education and Sports were prompted to come up with these measures that I'm going to mention. And these measures were aimed, 1, at preventing, 2, at saving lives in case of an occurrence. But I want to tell you, I was speaking to Dr. Dennis Mujimba,
yes,
who is the current spokesperson of the Ministry of Education and Sports. And he told me when he checked with the Directorate of Inspection, the Directorate of Education Standards, in the Ministry of Education and Sports, this is what he found out, that compliance was at between 35 and 45% of these requirements.
Yes.
But none of these takes rocket science. For example, briefly to go through them. First, emergency exits in dormitories. What they had planned, that every dormitory should have an exit.
Yes.
That in case of a fire, we save lives. Children can run out. What happens, most of these dormitories have a single door. So when there is an outbreak, there is stampede. and you know fire brings, the smoke that brings suffocation.
Yes.
So this young child, maybe they stampede and loses breath. Then there is this smoke, you lose that. Second, it was clear that no burglar proofs in doors and windows. You know, schools you went to, many of them, the dormitories are like a detention cell.
Oh yes, that's
Girls
very
escape
true.
at night. These children can't drink. So they have put burglar proofs. In case of a fire, what happens? Because fire can start at the entrance. Now you have to use windows to move out. If these windows are sealed, these are lives we are losing. Then set up safety committees. These included also the students. I want to tell you, how many schools have these committees?
Well, if they actually have them, they're no longer functional.
They're no longer.
It's
Recently, I was touring this. They talked about COVID committee having the head boy, the head girl, as students representative.
Yes.
Many schools had never heard of that, and they weren't. Then they have a fire fighting equipment. This is what I discovered. Very few schools have fire fighting equipment. And you see, I think fire is something that even us we don't give priority. Very few cars have fire extinguishers.
Actually, we just get taken up by the heat of the moment. Now that we know the fires are actually there, we are going to act out of passion. We are going to make sure we do all that. But you know, when the emotions come down, when the situation comes down, no one is bothered about all this equipment.
Now, organizing regular fire drills, that the students, the pupils can know that in case of a fire, this is what we do. We run out, you use the window, you use the door, you use this, so that they have that in mind.
Yes.
Then there is what we call fire assembly point. Even organizations are supposed
They
to
actually have that, yes.
that, you know, when there is a fire, we all run out and assemble at this particular point. So that as the firefighters come in, as property is being saved, we out and we're safe. What happens? This is simple. I don't know if any have talked about, requires rocket science. Then also they burnt triple deckers in schools. You know, first floor, second floor, third floor, sleeping on it. Apartment style. We used to go there.
Apartments.
On the fourth floor, on the third floor. Sometimes it's very cold, sometimes it's very hot.
Yes.
Because when a fire breaks out, it is hard for that person up to jump and go through this because there is panic. Either they will break and they can't run. Go to many schools today, triple deckers are triple deckers. Then
does that even explain why maybe parents are not allowed in these dormitories? Because if you've noticed, most schools won't let the parents, especially if you're, you know, taking the child back to school, they won't let you get to the dormitory section. I don't know whether maybe that's why.
It has been a policy even when I was in school. My school, should you go with your parents,
yes,
then you would park your belongings and indefinite suspension there. So even they had to ensure there is a fence around every school and a standby guard day and night. Recently they added cameras to be put there.
Yes.
But now when you look at these directives, I don't think a person who is aiming at maximizing profit would go this extra mile where there is no sufficient and effective supervision and monitoring.
Yes.
So it is very useless to have good laws, to have good plans, to have good guidelines as long as they are not going to be implemented. That is for the schools. Then for the school owners, and that is for the government, because you asked me, where's the role of government? Ensure this is put in place.
Yes.
When you go to most of these schools, they'll tell you, you go to a school and it is as open as a church. Because a church, you don't put a fence. Church, you know, and that is a school. There is no safety measure in place to protect these children. For the schools, much as they must maximize profits, but one, they must understand that if these are in place, we must implement them for the good of our very own.
Yes.
If you lose students, this can have an impact.
You actually need to prioritize the life of the students.
For me, I want to fault government that if these were put in place, most of the fires we see today would have been avoidable. That is why from 2008, we've not had so many of these fire incidents. Now they have just cropped up here. And when we hear elements of arson suspected to have been caused by arson, that means this person was able to access the premises.
Yes.
That is one. Undetected access the premises. Two, where we see loss of lives, we must examine how did these losses of lives happen. Is it that where one hero will try to rescue others as she was quoting?
Yes.
Or is it because there was stampede? Thirdly, and most importantly, also licensing schools. There's one funny thing that happens in the Ministry of Education. A school can be in a community for about 5 years.
Yes.
Or 6 years. I don't know if you've witnessed this. Then when a term is about to open, you hear the school has been closed because it doesn't have a license.
Oh yes, it does actually. It happens a lot.
So that means this school has been there. We have district inspectors, school inspectors, they are paid. They have not known that there's a
That
school
this was
there.
in existence.
Who really inspects these buildings to ensure they are fit for purpose, and there is an element of fire that has been factored in, that in case of a fire, then this and this is put in place. And to the parents, you know, parents, we are so much taken up now into I pay school fees.
And everything should be done with the school fees. We'd leave it.
How many these PTAs push to understand the safety of their children beyond marks? Yeah? What happens? Where does your child go to school? How do they perform?
Yes.
So we do not think of this element that a child you're taking to school could lose a life. And to me, this is something that we need to be very serious about and give priority it deserves. Because today it could be your child, tomorrow it could be another person's child. It would be funny for you to receive a phone call, then you rush to save a life, and fire when it happens within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a good fire.
It's actually up there.
If there are lives, people are trapped, lives are lost.
Well, it's really, really sad. Now, maybe as we come to the end of these, of course, every problem definitely has a solution, or at least there are certain things that can be put into place to make sure that we get things back on, to a straight line. We've seen a couple of reports that are yet to be, delivered by police, especially concerning these fires. Well, we don't know where they are. We haven't seen yet. Yeah, we had a gap right there where we didn't have these fire outbreaks and or not. But again, still we need to know, now that the government is in play, even the schools themselves are in play, what should be done? Where are the gaps, and what should we do to make sure we fill these gaps? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, this can occur. It can occur 3 years from now.
One, we should stop lip service.
Oh, okay.
I think we've done so much of talking and less action, yet that we can. The Directorate of Inspection in the Ministry of Education and Sports should be empowered, because these are things that are possible. Let's inspect these schools. The Director of Fire and Rescue Services, Uganda Police Fire Brigade, should be given the mandate to ensure they go ahead and find out that all these are put in place. Otherwise, there's so much of lip service, and also holding people accountable. This issue of you arrested a matron, you've arrested a teacher, you've taken statements from them, we've let them go. Investigate, let's find out the causes, let's hold people accountable. This, in my opinion, would be as good as good.
Absolutely. Accountability is really, really necessary. Meanwhile, the poll question is still running, still concerning the same topic. How can all these rampant fires in schools be stopped? And of course, we'll be sharing the feedback. Make sure you do tell us what you think. And you can do that on Twitter. The hashtag is UBCGMU. Also, feel free to send us an SMS text or even a WhatsApp message. And the number is 0709 602 592. It is your responsibility as a parent, as a student, and even the stakeholders to make sure that we break these fires. When we get back, we'll be taking a look at what is happening in the print media. Good morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite shows.
My radio is my best friend. UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Double MBs for the same price on daily bundles with Airtel. Now you get double MBs for twice your enjoyment. For 250 shillings, you now get double. That's 30 MBs. For only 500 shillings, you get 80 MBs. And for 1,000 Uganda shillings, enjoy 180 MBs, all valid for 24 hours. Dial *175# or use the My Airtel app to enjoy double MBs on your daily bundles for the exact same price. With Airtel, the smartphone network.
Patriotism is a feeling of love, devotion, and the willingness to sacrifice for one's country.
I say no to corruption because I put my country first. I choose peace over violence because I put my country first.
I love Uganda. I serve Uganda. I sacrifice for Uganda. I'm loyal to Uganda. I love my soul.
Be patriotic. Uganda first. This message is brought to you by the National Secretariat for Patriotism Co-Uganda, Office of the President.
In all its operations worldwide, Total Energies considers national content as a key component for the success of its operations. Total Energies EP Uganda therefore developed a national content strategy aimed at maximizing the use of local manpower, goods, and service providers. Subsequently, the company has undertaken a number of initiatives aimed at ensuring that Ugandan companies, entities, and citizens are adequately equipped to participate in the oil and gas sector. Some of these initiatives include the organization of national supplier development workshops with the aim of providing suppliers with information regarding available opportunities to supply goods and services. Other initiatives include health, safety, environment training, the Welders Training and Certification Program, training of heavy goods vehicle drivers, scaffolding training, and the development of the Industry Enhancement Center. This strategy was developed in line with the national content regulations of Uganda. Total Energies EP Uganda is committed to the empowerment of Ugandans to take an active part in the overall development of the oil project in Uganda.
Start your day bright and early with Good Morning Bundles from Airtel. That's right. Enjoy brighter days with 2 GB at 5,000 shillings, valid for 24 hours. Join that morning agent meeting. Close that online business deal. Catch up with loved ones. Do it all with the most affordable data bundles. Dial *175# to buy Good Morning Bundles from 12 a.m. to 11:59 a.m. and enjoy 2 GB, valid for 24 hours from time of purchase. Good Morning Bundles for the best day ahead with Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Monitor will look at NSSF mid-term access rules leak, and of course now this is the long-awaited regulations that are expected to be gazetted this Friday, this week, and of course they provide, among others, the claimants will all be paid. So the requirements to receive in the paper, so make sure you get that copy this morning. We also take a look at ex-Red Cross boss Nataka, who gets 7 years in jail. Why? Well, that is why you need to get the paper, and no justification for President Putin's war against Ukraine. And of course, in other stories, evicted Changwali families go on to seek help. The big picture right there, you see Mulago separating another set of conjoined twins. Well, this is a very big win for, this big hospital. And we look at the mother of the twins who is breastfeeding one of her babies as Dr. John Sekabira, who led the team of specialists that performed the surgery, explaining quite a very valid point to the journalists out there. When you move on to the second page, students count losses as fire guts dormitory. And also police attribute the fire to sparks from the electricity lines that spread to other parts of the dormitory. Also, we take a look at the history today. Uganda attains self-governance, and also bomb explodes in Capitol building.
Well, in the new vision, we also look at the deadly chemicals in local market vegetables. Well, if you're a consumer or even into vegetable farming, this is one to look out for, as these deadly chemicals are out there. Now, also in the new vision, they show you what to watch out for car thieves. Now, police has unveiled the new tactics that are being used by these robbers and how they are getting into people's cars. So this is one that you need to read and look out for. Now, in the same paper, they are also showing you the dynamics of poultry farming to be showcased, and that is that look out for in the Harvest Money Export that is forthcoming. And also you look at police investigating emerging human trafficking tactics, and that is there on page 3. That is one to also look out for, as the police spokesperson Fred Enanga continues to showcase most of these. What to earn for from the chicken at the Harvest Money Export, that is one you should also be looking out for in today's new vision.
And when it comes to the monitor sports, we look at Isabia's Bull Steel dream of the UPL title, and also Toro Queens grind the UCU for another draw. Quite very interesting right there. And also we take a look at the 8 Hill Emporium, where we have about a candidate to good for rivals. Well, all that, make sure that you get in the sports section if you get yourself a copy. Monitor.
Well, there is an interesting headline I'm seeing in the new vision that should men and women share work at home? Now, you want to know what that is going to look like? Look out for pages 21 and 23. That should be interesting. But also in sports, they are showing you the new phase at MAC, and also that brings in at least what is going on over there in terms of sports. But also looking into the Bright Stars goalkeeper, and that is also as KCCA Rogers Mato attempted to score during the Uganda Cup match last Friday. All that is being showcased in the new vision today, and also celebrating Walusimbi. If you're a sports lover in Uganda, you know what that man has also been doing, and that is also showcased over there in the new vision.
Well, quite very, very interesting. Well, it's also time for us to, take a look at the Daily Nation, and right there over the head page, we look at Raila Kalonzo, and also taking a look at the tensions which spoil Azimio plans. Well, Kenyans also battling rare diseases. Wow. Wow. And the big picture there really shows, the clash of the titans. They have worked together before, building a formidable relationship, but, well, we don't know where that is going to take them. And also taking a look at how the CS assures on security during tests. Well, that is it from the Daily Nation. Well, it's about the time when we take you to the get into the roads. We do have some feedback concerning the morning poll question, where we did ask, what do you think can be done to make sure we stop the rampant fire outbreaks in the country? Feedback is still coming through, but I will say something coming in from you, Derek, where you're saying, good morning, family. Most of these fire outbreak cases due to poor connection of umeme wires. Schools are challenged to put different fire extinguishers in different school premises and teach students how to use them. And still, schools should have smoke detectors to alert any likely fire outbreak. Thank you so much, Derek, which is very, very crucial, very important. You own a school, you are part of a school administration system. I think that is very, very crucial for you to note. Well, while you are still giving us your feedback, of course, we'll be figuring it out and also sharing with you. Well, also Twitter, it's still running, and the hashtag is UBCGMU, where we definitely get into that feedback. I will be getting into that shortly, but for now, we take at what is happening on the Ugandan roads. Now, before I actually get into this, there are several reports that have come out that quite a number of Ugandans don't even take time to service their cars. Now, you know that happens, you know what happens when you put a car that is not well and properly serviced on the road. Check that oil, make sure the tires are functional, make sure that it is in a very good condition, because at the end of the day, your life matters. Your priority should be your life and other people who are using the road. And your car could be a source of convenience, but also could be the cause of your health issues. So make sure that you really work on them to make sure that they are good and functioning while on the road. This morning, I want to look at some of these shortcuts within Kampala, what you can do or where you can go through to make sure you access the city center. And we have quite a number of those. We have Parliamentary Avenue, especially if you are trying to get onto Kampala Road. And we also do have Nile Avenue, we have Yusuf Lule Road, we have Pilkington Road. So I will be taking a look at some of these areas to make sure that I give you the best alternative if you are trying to access the city center. It should be very ideal for you. Now, most of these roads connect you right from the city outskirts. If you're coming in from Chira Road, if you're coming in from Ginger Road, if you're coming in from Bombo Road, I think it's very, very crucial for you to take note, because we do have very many connecting roads. Now, you could use Nile Avenue if you're coming in from Yusuf Lule Road. As you can see right here, it's a very clear path. You don't have any red spot, you don't have any orange spot, you have nothing to worry about. Now, of course, you connect Nile Avenue from Yusuf Lule Road, which is also a very clear path. You join this Yusuf Lule Road after you have come from John Babiha Road, or if you have connected straight from Bulago Road. So it's a very, very ideal route for you to use. Now, we also have some other shortcut routes there. We have Chintu Road, which is it's very okay, it's passable, although there is a certain kind of traffic build-up right here where you see the orange spot. Now, this Chintu Road still takes you all around until you connect to Seziwa Road or Tanan Road. Of course, we do see some orange spots right there, which means that there is a slightly traffic build-up, but that shouldn't really worry you. At least this morning, we are not seeing very many red spots like we were doing yesterday. Now, when you continue Nile Avenue Road, of course, it connects you all the way to Shimoni Road, Speak Road, which also shows that it's quite a clear path. Now, you can also connect to Speak Road if you're using Nakasero Road. Nakasero Road is a little bit crazy, maybe because there are several offices right there. We also have very many people trying to look at it as the final destination, and that explains these spots that you see. We do have a red spot right there. We have also an orange spot and a green spot. So if you're trying to get into the city center using it, you need to expect a little bit of some traffic buildup. But if you're leaving, it shouldn't worry you. Also, it's not a very long stretch, so it's manageable if you only practice a little bit of patience. So yes, if you're planning to use some of these shortcuts to get to the city center, it should be a good deal for you. Leaving or getting into it, it works two-way. You have nothing to worry about. And eventually all these routes will lead you to Kampala Road. Also, if you're leaving the city center, you could also use Bombo Road, which is a clear pathway. Now it's a you could use Bombo Road. It's a two-way. You could use it getting into the city, but also leaving the city center. So you have nothing to worry about. The traffic is manageable overall, I could tell you, within Kampala this Tuesday morning, which is really expected, aside from Mondays or Fridays or when it has rained. maybe, and especially now that we're getting into the month of March where we expect these heavy rains, well, we do also need to expect a little bit of traffic buildups. So this should be something that you need to take into consideration, waking up early to make sure that you don't become a victim of this traffic, or you leave slightly later, because the rains will definitely be in here and they won't wait for anybody, and you can't fight the traffic. You either be patient with it or you decide to stay home. And that brings us to the end of the traffic updates this morning. But we also do have Mollen Kenyena coming in to give us more about, you know, the weather and these heavy rainfalls that everybody is singing and talking about. I don't know whether we need to expect floods as well, because we have looked at the good side, farmers and everybody getting ready for it. But what happens when the floodings come through, especially on our roads? We have sections on our roads where we get all these inconsequential floods that are very inconveniencing, Mollen. What are we going to do?
Well, earlier, Philo, we did establish the fact that the relationship between traffic buildup and rains is just undeniable. And we actually talked about the fact that when it rains, that is when people think to drive their cars. There are people who actually leave their cars on a daily, you know, I think for avoiding the prices of fuel or for some other reasons. But when it rains, it's inevitable. You have to get in that car. Me, as for one, I actually advocate for having less cars on the road. Reasons, environmental. The less cars on the road, that means we are also cutting down on the emissions that we're sending out. So guys, even when it rains, it's okay to take that taxi. That's my advice.
As you're still contemplating on that, I'll just give you a few of the feedback again you have shared on Twitter concerning the poll question. And Biarugaba Eli is saying students, teachers and communities need to be sensitized on the skills of fire safety. Healthy inspectors must be supported to move all over the schools to inspect and supervise all schools in relation to occupation health and safety. The police should also do clear investigations. And from you, Matthias Major, you're saying actually every school that has a boarding section should have installed firefighter and have experts to educate kids on how to use them. Well, I officially hand you over to Mollen. Good morning. I am Philomena Mastiko.
Well, thank you, Philo. And on that note, I know a friend right now who is just laughing. It's like, yeah, me to take a taxi, no. But when we're talking about, you know, reducing cars on the road, this is for the good of the environment, because you look at the fact that each car that you have on the road does contribute a huge amount to the emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So you want to go environmental friendly, reduce on that. Now take a scenario where in a home you actually have 3 cars. Now the wife is driving, the husband is driving, and there is another car for the kids. Now, this is where I bring in my suggestion. And since we're talking about, you know, Women Month, looking about March, this is a time where you as the wife, you can choose, you know, to have this one car, drop your husband at work first, and then you continue to your workplace. You do the same in the evening. That means you leave your workplace, you know, pick up your husband and go home. That means you have 1 car on the road, you know, instead of having those 2. So I think that is something that you can look into. Also, you know, in terms of reducing your consumption as well. Now, yesterday we did talk about the fact that IPCC, that is the Inter-Governmental Panel on Climate Change, was releasing a report, and this morning we also had a story about it. And what is highlighted in this year's, you know, climate change report is that what we have, we're looking at more food insecurity, as well as, you know, the insecurity around the food situation. Now, the IPCC has talked about, you know, the situation that is challenging, worse, and undermining food security. And this is what the report is also highlighting. Now, the future global risks that have been highlighted in the report, we're looking at the heat stress, which means we will have more exposure to heat waves, and that will be continuing as we look at, you know, a rise in temperatures. But also it talks about the water scarcity, since we're looking at a rise in temperature going at 2 degrees Celsius. That means regions relying on snowmelt could actually experience 20% decline in water availability for agriculture. That is after 2050. But also still highlighting on food security, you look at climate change will increasingly undermine food security and the flood risk. Not to mention this, because this is something that we have been dealing with even before this climate report came out. We're looking at about 1 billion people in low-lying cities by the sea and on small islands at risk of sea level rise by mid-century. Now, this is not just something that is projected in the report, but we're already seeing this. And just recently, we have been talking about, islands. You look at Madagascar, they have had, unprecedented effects when it comes to climate variations, looking at more of these tropical cyclones hitting their area. And that is something that, we are already experiencing. We did not have to wait for this report to showcase. But then they are also saying that this is going to be a rampant effect, and this is going to be only making us more vulnerable. So our focus right now, also from the report that did come out from Working Group 2 of the 60th assessment report, is that we should focus on adaptation. And you look at vulnerability, the impacts that climate change is bringing through. And talking about impacts, we have had continued reports, looking into what is affecting cocoa farmers. And this is something that did start off even earlier. They have gotten to, that is Western Africa, actually. They have gotten to mid-harvest, and still there are no rains over this area. That means there is continued drought stress over the area. And, West Africa has been known for providing much of the cocoa across the continent, and also, for export. But when we see these variations affecting production, this is something that we are still worried about. But also, we did talk about the fact that our rains are here, and we want to talk about what is mostly likely to happen. Now, when we did give out this forecast at the beginning of the month, we were talking about the likelihood that there is going to be continued, these rains are going to be associated with strong winds and possibility of lightning. We have already had strikes in different areas of the country. Look at the strikes that have been in schools. But still, as the March to May rains come in, you have to look out for these. We still expect those to continue. Now, according to the statistics from last year's events, we did see a lot of lightning, and this was coming from the Ministry of Planning, looking into what happened across the areas now. There were several deaths that were recorded last year, and that is in Western Uganda districts of Kisoro, looking at 7 people, Lubanda 3, Kanungo 2, Northern Uganda, that is Albutong district, 5 members of the family. And these are the statistics from last year, but I can tell you these are things that are likely to happen again. So what do you need to do in times where you're looking at, having heavy rains coming your way? First of all, you have to avoid open places. These are hotspots for lightning. Avoid open places when you're taking, shelter as well. Avoid tall trees. Now, this is something that you could, think to do, especially if you're in a garden and then it starts to rain. But tall trees are also bad spots for, lightning strikes. This is something that you should be avoiding. And also advice to the schools. This is a time where you actually, have to install those lightning bolts to make sure that you capture the thunder and lightning when it comes. So yes, this has to be done, especially also in public buildings. Make sure that you have those lightning bolts to make sure that, you avoid damage when it comes to lightning. But also, we want to take you through what is happening over Uganda right now, and that will be tapping into our satellites for this morning, and take a look at the weather that we have started with across the country today. We'll be looking into the forecast as well, but it looks like we've started off with mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions across most areas within the country. But not to get comfortable, we do have rains that are coming your way as well. And we'll be seeing that in a forecast, which will be coming in a little bit later on. But for now, I can tell you we have mostly cloudy conditions developing across the Lake Victoria Basin. That system will be bringing us rains, especially towards parts of central and western Lake Victoria Basin. It's starting off quite strong, originating from mostly the eastern side of Lake Victoria. What you're seeing there in quite some yellow colors, that is what is likely to develop and also continue westwards. But the rest of the country seems to be having mostly sunny weather. And also it looks like much of northern Uganda, the Karamoja region, will remain mostly dry throughout much of the day. But also the forecast is indicating at least we will maintain those sunny conditions region, but we'll go ahead and take a look at the central part of Lake Victoria, where we are forecasting those isolated showers. Those will be coming your way as the day progresses, also starting off with a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade over there. Now we look at the central part of northern Uganda, where we do have Gulukit, Gumpadel and Jumani forecasting intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, starting off with a warm 30 degrees, and we do expect that those to continue into the afternoon, so meaning temperatures will only be getting higher. That is one hot place in the country right now. We also look at the eastern part of Central. We have Mollen, Bururi, Nakaseke, Ruwero. We have Nakasongola in there. We are forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine. We also are starting off hot with 30 degrees centigrade, but later in the afternoon that area is expected to develop some light rain, so that might keep temperatures a little bit down. Now, Soroti to eastern Uganda, Katapi, Mori and Kumi, we're still forecasting sunny intervals. Now, that area has been consistently dry, but we're still expecting those sunny conditions coming in at 30 this morning, and we do expect similar conditions even in the afternoon, so you have to deal with those sunny conditions till by evening. Bara even Bushenyi Rubirizi, we are forecasting isolated showers. Those will be coming in over a few areas within the region, starting off at 26, and we're also likely to have more of those rains develop even later in the afternoon. Masaka, Kalisizo, Sembabule, Rakai, we have those clouds starting to develop over there, and those will be bringing in rains across several places. Off at 26, and also most likely we will be having those rains continue into the afternoon. Now, most of those systems do develop, especially from Lake Victoria extending westwards, and that is what is likely to keep those rains for you even later in the afternoon. Well, I want to leave you at that. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda that will be coming your way. Robert will be here to give you that, and also later we'll have sports highlights from Ruben, not forgetting Good Morning Uganda Extra by Jaginda Semakula. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a good morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
It's time to learn. Schools are open. As a student, school life is going to be different. You must follow the COVID-19 prevention measures, which include always maintaining a 2-meter distance from others in class, dormitories, entertainment halls, school vans and playgrounds, regularly washing your hands with soap and water, wearing a washed and clean mask that covers your mouth and nose every day, and encouraging your classmates to do the same. Your teachers will also guide you on how to follow SOPs. Don't engage in violence with other students. Report any cases of abuse by teachers or other children to a senior teacher. Those who don't follow the rules should be immediately reported to a class teacher for correction and further guidance. If you experience flu-like symptoms such as a sore throat, fever, dry cough or body weakness, immediately seek medical attention from the school nurse and inform your class teacher. Whenever you sneeze or cough, please remember to cover your nose and mouth with a bent elbow, tissue or handkerchief. Let's share knowledge, not COVID-19. This message is supported by the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education and Sports, and UNICEF. Stay safe.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
how to get points. Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
National Medical Stores is a government agency mandated to buy, store and distribute medicines and medical supplies to government health facilities in Uganda. For Ugandans that we serve, help us serve you better by taking your individual responsibilities seriously. Report theft of government medicines and medical supplies to the nearest police station or to the State House Health Monitoring Unit. Do not pay for any medicines or medical supplies labeled Government of Uganda, not for sale. Do all that is within your means to stop all preventable diseases, including COVID-19. Continue observing the Ministry of Health Standard Operating Procedures, SOPs, including wearing a face mask whenever you are in public spaces. Visit a designated health facility to receive your COVID-19 vaccination and a booster dose for those that are eligible. Prevention is better than cure. National Medical Stores.